The Warriors continue to surge in recent games. Over the last stretch that started against the Hawks on the homestand, it took nothing less than a call from Adam Silver and a bit of stubbornness from Steve Kerr to shake things up for Golden State, resulting in 3 losses, 2 of which were by a single point, in what would otherwise have been a sea of blowouts. Hey, what's happening everyone? This is Swish Culture, and I'm here documenting the resurgence of the Golden State Warriors in real time. If you haven't been a part of this channel, you're probably thinking the team is on its last legs, but we go beyond the metrics here while keeping a firm grip on the hard facts. The Warriors were looking for a second option that can create and score. This whole time, Steve Kerr had this superstar sitting on his bench. Over the last 20 plus games, Jonathan Kuminga has shown just how much of a force he is on both ends of the floor, eventually forcing Steve Kerr to put him in the starting lineup and a steady diet of 30 plus minutes a night. The Warriors' offense instantly blossomed. Draymond Green returned, and under his guidance, direction, and his regained ability to lead the team has started clicking defensively. Last but not least, Andrew Wiggins is starting to look more and more like 2022 Wiggins every single game. And what has this led to?
All I do is win, no matter what.
Be sure to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. And get ready, you're about to get swished. In the last video, I highlighted a clip of Klay Thompson asking the media if he wants him to bench himself. What I left out was that Klay also asked if Wiggins should be benched.
Bench Wiggs?
Tongue in cheek, of course, but what this means is Klay is acutely aware of the team's struggles as well as his role in it. If you are denying that Klay has anything to do with it, then you're simply living in denial. Sometimes you just have to call a boat anchor what it is, and I'm sure Captain Klay knows what one of those looks like. A few people have indicated that they consider my videos to be anti-Klay. Gosh, I never thought Klay's numbers would have it out for him. Maybe we should tell the team to stop playing so good when Klay's not on the floor. The fact is, Wiggins, Draymond, Steve Kerr, and Kevon Looney all have contributed in some form or another to the difficulties this team has had. If not, show me another consistent 20 plus point scorer besides Steph Curry on this team that didn't start the season on the bench. Now that caveat that I added for the bench is to point out that it isn't just a single player that had issues, but so far, only a single player hasn't taken an opportunity to try to fix them. Now granted, Klay's playing time may be as a result of Steve Kerr, it would also require a mature mindset from Klay Thompson because neither Steph Curry or Draymond Green, as big of a mouth that he has, will tell Klay he needs to accept a reduced role. I'm simply going to post the facts, or as close to it as I can get with the available data and my own observations from watching the games. If this is a problem, welcome. It's gonna be a long season. Next is Andrew Wiggins. Steve Kerr was asked about Wiggins' resurgence, and this was his response.
Do you feel like that you reacquired Andrew Wiggins in recent days?
I feel like Andrew's actually been coming the last few weeks.
One of the main things I try to do on this channel is to get insight based on body language, choice of words, and speech patterns to do all the translating that these conversations tend to cloak. So, while some people see it as a complete about turn for Wiggins, it seems this is something that he's been trying to resolve over time and really hints to some internal struggle. The benching apparently hurt because the additional minutes seem to make him play better. I've definitely noticed a big difference with his effort, especially defensively, and I think for now that works better for the Warriors. If you notice, the team has shifted away from running Wiggins post-ups to Kuminga post-ups, and considering JK is the more gifted scorer, I'm expecting that to continue. Wiggins is playing more of the role that JK was playing last season, finishing plays, backdoor cuts, lobs, etc. He's attacking the basket in transition, and for the last 5 games has been averaging just under 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 steal per game while shooting 47% from 3. This is pointing to a significant uptick, and the defense we're seeing indicates that we're trending towards the Andrew Wiggins of 2022. If this happens to be the case, considering every other recent development with the team, then expect the Warriors to make some noise going into this season's playoffs. It's interesting that Steve Kerr said Wiggins couldn't play with Kuminga, something I said should have been done a long time ago, and now we see the two are thriving in the starting role. There's a good reason for that, however, and he's next on my list. Draymond Green had some interesting things happen. A few months ago, Draymond revealed that he had received an offer to play for another team. He mentioned somewhere along the lines of $10 million more per year, and considering he's currently signed for 4 year $100 million, we're looking at $140 million for 4 years. Strangely similar to the Jordan Poole contract. Now, recently it came out that this team he almost signed a deal to play with is the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know about you, but considering what went down between Golden State and Memphis, I find it hard to believe Draymond would even consider replacing Dillon Brooks. Or would he? Considering how he started the season, however, I'm sure he'd be back in a Warriors uniform by the trade deadline. That being said, he's been very instrumental in the Warriors recharging and coming back to play competitive basketball. He's the anchor that seems to be guiding Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga on the defensive end to help the team compete on the floor on a nightly basis. It isn't the only reason, but just one of the few. But the biggest development this season has been Jonathan Kuminga's ascension to the next level. At the beginning of the season, I made a video titled Jonathan Kuminga is Him, which someone proceeded to share on Reddit. Aside from the crucifixion of my use of the term him, my video got shot down for even daring to state what I thought was obvious, and is that he was already the player in the beginning of the season that we're seeing today. Jonathan Kuminga called out Steve Kerr and Kerr challenged him. Kuminga responded and Steve Kerr rewarded him with minutes. This much was admitted by Steve Kerr in his interview on the Will and Dib show.
I think it really put Jonathan on the spot. And, he sort of, some ways, called me out. I challenged him on some things and he's followed through, and we've rewarded him with more playing time, and he's really making the most of it.
What you're seeing from Kuminga is a long time coming. We saw his workout videos in the summer. We saw him follow up in the preseason. And now we're in the regular season and he's shown everyone exactly why he said no one can guard him. He just recently set a career high of 31 points and is threatening to break that on a nightly basis. Did you know that Kuminga has been averaging 54% from 3 over the course of his last 10 games? He's made 14 of 26 attempts from downtown, and his shot continues to improve in fluidity and consistency. Could you imagine if Steve Kerr actually gave Moses Moody minutes? These two tend to amplify each other's impact, and whenever they play together, it's complete and utter chaos. Do you recall that game where the Warriors came back against the Spurs in late January of 2022? Alongside Poole, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga, after having not played much of the game, were basically put in as Kerr was throwing the white flag. And all 3 players went off, making a 17-point comeback. For me, that's where they proved how good they were. Removing Klay from the starting lineup in place of Moody would give the Warriors length, defense, hustle, and athleticism that would run teams out of the gym. This would give Paz the ability to run point with Klay on the second unit in the meantime, and best of all, give developmental minutes to our young guys instead of vets that aren't noticeably better. Speaking of the young guys, one of the biggest changes that I've seen this season really came into prominence against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, we saw this happen earlier in the game against the Hawks, and while the Warriors lost that game, there was enough to warrant doubling down while making adjustments to the things that didn't really work out in that game. One of the major issues, for example, was that Klay Thompson's shot selection again got the best of him. Now, I'm not about to rag on Klay because he's going through enough as it seems. After the Nets game, he had an interview that really showed what he's going through, and with that type of behind-the-scenes look following how the game went, you can really see he's having a hard time. I completely get what Klay's going through, and I'm hoping he doesn't make this any more difficult for himself than it already is. This is a man that is having a hard time coming to grips with reality. This is who he's always known himself to be for probably close to the last 20 years. We're talking about a serious identity crisis, and when people blow it off like it's nothing while you're up to your neck and trying to figure out who you are now, it's not really a good feeling. So, Klay, keep your head up, brother. No one dislikes you. The issue is, Klay coming to the realization of who he is taking longer than those of us on the outside are expecting it to. But we all handle our struggles differently. Give him time to process and go a little easy on him. That being said, it was immediately noticeable in the Nets game that Steve Kerr was not going to allow the team to shoot themselves out of this one, and the team didn't really shoot many threes. They only attempted 2 in the first quarter, and by the end of the first half of the game, only went 2 of 11 from distance. Klay Thompson was noticeably not taking too many shots either. It's almost as if they had a moratorium on taking threes, which the Warriors only had 22 attempts at the end of the game. There's teams taking 63-point shots a game, but a team like the Warriors taking only 22 attempts was clearly mandated. This wasn't a bad thing though, as the team drove to the basket and especially in that third quarter ran the offense through Jonathan Kuminga. Again, he proved he was unstoppable, carving up the Nets defense not just to score, but finding his teammates as well. His court vision continues to show as well as improve. JK is the reason half the Nets team were in foul trouble, with Cam Johnson originally looking dangerous, having to sit with 5 fouls, and Cam Thomas eventually fouling out. Brooklyn had no answer for JK. This is the second option the Warriors needed this season, and he couldn't come at a better time. But that wasn't the only thing we saw. Steve Kerr made some great moves, and while some were questionable, do you recall a player named Gui Santos? I did a video on Santos 2 off seasons ago and shared how skilled of a player he was and that the Warriors basically stole him with the 55th pick. Now he's finally out of the G League as he signed a contract with the team and came up big time for the Warriors against the Nets. This lineup with Santos, Pods, Kuminga, Curry, and Green closed out, with Santos finishing with a plus 13 and career highs of 9 points and 5 rebounds. While he's not quite as quick, he was grabbing boards, setting screens, and making plays within the offense. He's 6'8". He's tall. He's going to be guarding bigger players. This is why Kerr kept going back to him instead of Saric, who was only in for a few minutes. While the Nets roster was a bit depleted, they still packed talent with Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal, who was a sniper from 3, as well as Nick Claxton, who, by the way, got ejected with a flagrant foul penalty too after seemingly callously throwing Pods to the ground. Lucky for him, the Nets faced off against post-clarity Draymond Green. Lester Quinones, by the way, despite being on a 2-way contract, has been showing up as well. After dropping 17 points and 5 boards while shooting 4 of 8 from 3 against the Hawks, he had 7 boards, 2 assists, and 2 steals against the Nets to offset a poor shooting night. He's shown that he's capable of playing both ends of the floor, and with these two guys entering the rotation, the team is reaping some major success. I don't think you guys realize how much of a big deal this is to see Steve Kerr make these adjustments to the roster. You can thank Kerr all you want, but I for one think all of this was driven by Jonathan Kuminga. JK forced Steve Kerr to ask himself, if I had JK out of the rotation, sitting on the bench with this much ability, what else am I missing? This likely forced Kerr to put his bench guys in the rotation to give them an opportunity to fill in for the failures of an aging roster. This, in my opinion, is the biggest development, even more so than JK's own individual growth, but the growth he instilled in Steve Kerr that impacted the entire roster and likely the entire season. This same kid that so many wanted traded to get another veteran just showed the coach that he already had all the talent he needed right there in front of him. He just needed to open his eyes. While we had a bunch of young players who were casualties of Steve Kerr, it's better late than never. I didn't hype these kids coming in for views. I saw the talent they brought to the team. Used in the right capacity, there is a lot to be gained without even making a trade. Lastly, Klay Thompson did not close out against the Brooklyn Nets. This led to Klay not really celebrating the team doing well, as he was mostly in his own head. His body language can be taken 2 ways. One is selfish, or the other way, which I think is actually the proper way to interpret it, that Klay was coming to reality with who he is as a player now. There was a video circulating that Klay was upset, and some purported it to be because he didn't close. But it turns out that that's false, and Klay was upset because some players on the Nets team were talking trash to a guy that's in a tough position in his career that he wasn't expecting to see so early. Maybe going forward, we can see Klay Thompson in a role more suitable for him and this team, as well as contract-wise. Post your thoughts in the comments below. Just don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. And thanks for watching. Till next time. Swoosh!